Okay, in the advanced system settings, we have environmental variables. Here in the environmental variables, we have updated the path. Okay, as we told, there are two types of environmental variables. One is system, another is user. We as the administrator can update the path in any of the environmental variables, but in general, okay, in real-time scenarios, if we developers are updating the path, it will be user environmental variables only, just because in any software company you don't have any administrator permissions to your system. If you want to install any software, you should call administration people, those who has the those who have the administration access to your system, and they will install the software for you for security reasons. Okay, so just you will update the path as user environmental variable. If you go for any small company, then you will have administrator permissions for you. So just you can already a path will be there. If it is a system environmental variable, already there a path will be there with operating system related stuff. So just you can update here at the end. So this is how we can update the path, okay, as a system or a user environmental variable. Okay, if the path is present both in the system as well as user environmental variable, then first the user environmental variable will be given a preference. Then only the system environmental variable will be given a preference. First the user, then the system. Okay, that would be the preference. And once we have updated the path, okay, just we can see that Java C as well as Java will be working in any of the locations. Okay, even in C drive also Java C is working, just because we have updated path as an environmental variable. Okay, now once we have updated the path, we can develop as well as execute the Java applications anywhere in our operating system. Okay, now let me go to my drive. Okay, this was a very basic application. Class space class name, okay, and a public static void main, which takes a string array as an argument, and these brackets can be at the data type or at the identifier, doesn't make any difference. Okay, and for a simple printf action, we go for system dot out dot println. Okay, and both system and string are library defined classes, and class public static void, these are keywords. Okay, that's what the thing that we have discussed yesterday, and today, okay, we'll discuss some more things, okay, about the basic application. Now we have told that class is a keyword and hello world is the class name. Okay, for any name, okay, for any name, for any identifier name in Java, it will have some standards. For a variable name, there are some standards. Okay, for class name, there are some standards. For attribute name, there are some standards. Okay, we should follow the standards while giving the names to that numbers. Okay, let's consider like I am creating an entity. Like let's consider like right now I am creating a class. For the class name also there are some naming standards. We should follow the naming standards as a developer. Most of the people they won't follow naming standards, so that the code will be very confusing to understand. If another developer, okay, tries to understand the code, it will be very confusing for him, just because the code is not as per the standards. So we as developers should follow that the code that we develop will be as per the standards, as per the industry standards. Okay, the class name should start with the uppercase. The class name should start with uppercase. Okay, not even the class name, any entity name should start with uppercase. That's a standard convention. Okay, the class name should start with uppercase. Okay, and the allowed characters are alphanumerics. Hope all of you know what is alphanumerics, alphabets and numerics. Okay, and underscore and dollar. Okay, these are the special characters allowed in a class name. Alphanumerics underscore and sorry, alphanumerics characters are allowed, and among the special characters, underscore and dollar are allowed in a class name. Dollar is not allowed in C, but dollar is allowed in Java. Underscore and dollar are allowed in a class name. Okay. And if there are multiple words in the class name, and the class name should reflect the purpose why we are using the class. The class name should reflect the purpose why we are using the class. Let's consider like if we are writing a class to validate some content, that means whether the content is correct or not. If you want to write a class which validates the content, that means whether the content is correct or not. So the class name should end with validator. Let's consider like I have a login form, okay, where I am entering the username password and so on. In any web pages we have username password and so on. Let's consider like this is a login form. And I am writing a class which validates the information, that means which verifies the information whether the entered information is correct or not, whether the entered credentials are correct or not. So, since that class validates the information, the class should be suffixed with validator. Since this class validates the information, it should be suffixed with validator. Okay? Since it is validating the information of the login form, okay, it should be login validator. Like this. Okay? The class name should reflect the purpose why we are writing a class. Okay? Now most of the people will be writing the class names are A, B and C. Now let's consider like the class A is validating the login form. Now can we come to know by seeing the class name A, can we come to know what it does? No. But it should not be the case. By seeing the class name, you should get a brief picture how and why this class is used. Okay? The class name should reflect the purpose why we are using the class. Okay? And if there are multiple words in the class name, if there are multiple words in the class name, then also each and every word should start with the uppercase. Okay? If there are multiple words in a class name, then each and every word should start with the uppercase. Now, how many words are there in this class name? Two words, hello and world. So, H is a uppercase and W is also uppercase. These are standards, okay? We should follow these standards. Okay. Now let me keep the class name as ABC. Now is this a standard name? No, it's not a standard name. Even it is not a standard name, just I am using this name to my class. Now let me delete the .class file. Now hello world.java is there in my folder. Now let me try to compile this hello world.java. Okay, just I am trying to compile hello world.java. Now is it compiled? Yes. Now one important point is, okay, now what is the class name and what is the .java file name? Hello world. Now is it mandatory to have the class name and .java file name the same? Is it mandatory to have the .java file name and the class name as the same? Yes or no? If you are telling yes, you are not listening to the class. What we have done? We have a class name as ABC and the .java file name is hello.java. Now, is it mandatory to have the class name and the .java file name as the same? It's not mandatory to have the class name and the .java file name as the same. And if we see the generated.class file, what is the name of the generated.class file? abc.class. Okay, the generated.class file name is irrespective of the .java file name. The generated.class file name will be the name of the class. Okay, the generated.class file name doesn't depend upon the .java file. Okay, the .java file name can be anything and the class name can be anything, but the generated.class file will have the name of the class, not the .java file. Okay, the generated.class file will have the name of the class. Generated.class file will have the name of the class. The generated.class file will have the name of the class. Or the name of the generated.class file will be same as the class name. So we can keep the .java file name as well as the class name as different, but the generated.class file will be of the class name itself. Now, if I execute like this, if I want to execute the application, I will use Java command. Now, will it be executed? No. Yes or no? No. What the Java command will do means, the Java command will try to fetch a .class file with that particular name. Now, a .class file exists in that location with the name hello world? No. A .class file exists with the name ABC. So, while executing, we should not consider what is the file name, we should consider what is the class name. Okay, but if I give Java space hello world, it will give a no class definition found error. It is trying to fetch a .class file with the name hello world, but a .class file with the name hello world doesn't exist in this location. Okay, so it will give no class definition found error. Understood? This is how it will be. The class name and the .java file name can be different, but this is not a standard. This is not a standard. Okay. Now, is the compiler restricting? Is the compiler restricting the? Or is the compiler applying any rules on the name of the class? That the class name should start with uppercase? No. The compiler will not apply any rules on the class name. Okay? The compiler will not apply any rules on the class name or a method name or any names, any identifiers. On any identifiers in Java, the compiler will not apply any rules. But it is a convention. It is a convention to follow the standards. Okay? Rule means it should be followed. Okay? If rule is not followed, then it will be a compiler error. Convention is a better to follow thing. Okay? Convention is a standard way. Okay? Just to better to follow. Okay? So we should follow the conventions. Okay? It's a standard approach to follow the conventions. But we should follow the rules. Otherwise it will give a compiler error. But the class name should be uppercase. There are multiple words. Then each and every word should start with uppercase. All these are conventions. All these are industry standards. They are not rules. So even though they are not rules, we should follow the specific convention. Okay? If we are a better programmer. So we follow the convention that the class name starts with uppercase, and if there are multiple words, the class name start, each and every word start with uppercase. Okay, if there are multiple words, then each and every word should start with uppercase, and the class name reflects the purpose why we are using the class. Okay, now this is little bit standardized. Now let me delete the existing .class file, which is abc.class. We don't want that. Just let me try to compile the application. If you make any changes, and if you want to get the changes reflected, we should compile it. Then only the changes will be reflected. I compile. If I execute Java space hello world, then it is executing the application. Okay. Now, okay. Even for a class, we can keep public. Before the class keyword, we can keep a public keyword. What is public makes the difference? Okay, we can come to know while discussing the access levels. Okay, it will take at least 15 days to go to access levels, but just make it a note like we can keep public before the class. Okay, and how public makes the difference in this basic application that we will discuss, and we discuss in depth about the public when the correct time comes while discussing the access levels. Okay, at this point of time, if I discuss about public means, you cannot understand what you are writing this. Huh? So, we'll discuss at the correct point of time. Now, we are writing a class which is public. We are writing a class which is public. Now, let me try to compile and execute the application. Sorry. Let me clear. Let me go for compilation. And let me go for execution. Now, is it making any difference? Is public making any difference? No. Let's see how the public will make the difference. Now, let us see how the class name is ABC. Now, was the class name ABC allowed earlier?
Yes.
Was the class name ABC allowed earlier? Yes. Now, what is it telling? What is the message that is giving? Just read the message. Class ABC is public. Should be declared in a file named abc.java. Okay, this error gives you the whole information that if a class is public, the class name should be the .java file name. Okay, if a class is public, then the class name should be the .java file name. If the class is public, then the class name should be the .java file name. If a class is public, then the class name should be the .java file name. It's a rule we should follow. Otherwise, it will be a compiler error. Okay, so we make the class name as now it will be compiled just because the class name is hello world and the file name is also hello world.java. Okay, so now it will be compiled and you can execute also. So if a class is public, then the public class name should be the .java file. That's a rule. And in a .java file, it's not like we can have only one class. We can have any number of classes. We can have any number of classes in the .java file. Okay? Just let me temporarily keep the class name as class person, class address. Now how many classes are there in my .java file? There are 3 classes in my .java file. Okay? Now how many .class files will be generated? 1 or 3? Continue. How many .class files will be generated? 3 or 1? Okay? What I told, just revise the concepts. What I told about the .class file generation? Yes, the .class file generation depends upon the .java file or the class. The .class file generation depends upon the class. The .class file generation depends upon the class. And how many classes are there? 3 classes. If 3 classes are there, definitely 3 .class files will be there. Okay? The .class file generation doesn't depend upon the .java file. Okay? And if you see here, okay, just okay, what are the .class files? There are 3 .class files. Okay, address.java, hello-world.java, and address.class, hello-world.class, and person.class. There are 3 .class files here. Okay, so the .class file generation doesn't depend upon the .java file name or .java file. It depends upon the number of classes that we have, and each and every class will have a .class file. Each and every class will have a .class file. We have 3 classes here, so 3 .class files are generated. And now 3 .class files are generated, and if I try to execute, Java space hello world is executed. Now let me try to execute person. Now I'm trying to execute the person. Now will it print any content in the console? No. Okay. And if I try to execute person, what is it giving? It is giving a runtime error. It is giving a runtime error. What is the runtime error? Read the runtime error. Exception in thread main, no such method error main. Okay. In the first class, what I told, the starting point of compilation is an entity, and the starting point of execution is the main method, not function. In C it is a function, in Java it is a method. But in C, the starting point of compilation as well as execution is a main function. But in Java, the starting point of compilation is an entity and the starting point of execution is a main method. Now, do I have the starting point of execution in the person class? Do I have the starting point of execution in the person class? No, there is no starting point of execution. If there is no starting point of execution, how I can execute that class? It's impossible. Okay? So, if I want to execute a class, okay, or if I want to start the execution for a class, then the class will have a main method. If I want to start the execution for a class, then the class should have a main method. Okay, otherwise we cannot execute that from the console. If you want to start execution of the class, then the class should have a main method. Now, what are the executable classes that we have? Only hello world. I cannot execute person or I cannot execute address from the console just because those classes doesn't have main methods. Okay, I can start the execution only with a class that has the main method. I can start the execution only with a class that has the main method. Now let's consider that there is a compile time error in the third class. Is there any compile time error in the third class? Yes. What is the compile time error? There is no semicolon. There is a compile time error that there is no semicolon after the statement. That means there is a compile time error in the third class. Now let me delete the existing .class files. Now only hello.java file is there. Okay. Now let me save it and let me try to compile it. Let me clear the screen. Now what is it doing? It's giving a compile time error at the line 14. Line 14 means which class? The class address. Now, are the hello world and person classes compiled successfully? Are the hello world class and person class compiled successfully? Yes. The hello world class will be compiled successfully and the person class will be compiled successfully. There is no compile time error in the hello world class and there is no compile time error in the person class. There is a compile time error only in the address class. Okay. Now, whether the .class file will be generated for hello world and person or not. Whether the .class file will be generated for hello world and person or not. Okay? Yes or no? Okay? Just we can see it. Is it generated? No. Okay? By this, how what we can come to know? The .class file generation will be initiated only after the whole .java file is successfully compiled. Okay? The .class file generation will be initiated only after the whole .java file is successfully compiled. The .class file generation will be initiated only after a successful compilation of the whole .java file. Okay. Now, if there is any compile time error, okay, some of the interviews will be asking like this. I have 99, some 100 classes. Among those 100 classes, 99 classes are compiling successfully, but the last 100 class is not compiled. Now, whether it will generate the .class file for the first 99 classes or not, even if it is 100 or 1 lakh or 1 crore, okay, the .class file generation will be initiated only after the complete successful compilation. Okay, and Now, how many dot class files will be generated? Is there any? How many dot class files are generated? Whether 3 or 2 or 1 or none. I'm not asking whether it is error or not. Just answer to my question. So, this is the way that we need to do. If we ask, if the question is how many dot class files are generated, you should tell how many dot class files are generated, either 0 or 3 or 1 or 2, but not the error. Answer to the question, that's it. How many dot class files are generated? 0 or 3? How many dot class files are generated? Is it 0 or 1 or 2 or 3? Now if you are telling 0, then there should be a compile time error, right? If you are telling 0 means there are no dot class files generated. In which scenario no dot class files are generated means if there is a compile time error. Okay? Now, is there any compile time error in this application? Yes? Yes. What is the compile time error? Public. Okay? The class address is public, but the file name is hello-world.java. Okay? The class address is public and the file name is hello-world.java. Just it tells like the class address is public and should be declared in a file named address.java. So, if there is a public class in the .java file, then the public class name should be the .java file name. Okay? If there is a public class in a .java file, the public class name should be the .java file name. That's what the rule that we have discussed just a couple of minutes back. Just we need to apply that rule. There is a public class in the .java file, then .java file name should be the if there is a public class in a .java file, then the public class name should be the .java file name. That's what we have discussed. Now will it be compiled? Will it be compiled successful? Yes or no? Yes. Definitely will be compiled successful just because the public class name is hello world and the .java file name is also hello world. So it will be compiled as well as it is executed successful just because the public class name is hello world and even the .java file name is also hello world. Okay, it was compiled and even it was executed successfully. Okay, and now will it be compiled? Just I have a public class hello world and the .java file name is hello world.java. What I told? A public class name should be the .java file name. Okay, what's the is hello world class public? Is hello world class public? Yes. Now, is the .java file name hello world.java? Yes or no? Yes. Now, where is the error? Okay, it will compile the hello world class very successful. It will compile the person class very successful, and the third class that is to be compiled is address class. Okay, while compiling the address class, what it will do? It will check is the class is public. Is the class public? Yes. The class is public, and is the .java file name address.java? No. So it will give a compile time error there. Okay, the class name is public. Okay, the class address is public, but the .java file name is not address.java. Now let's consider like in this scenario, what I will do is I will make the .java file name as address.java. in this scenario, for this .java file, just what I'll do is I'll rename the .java file from hello world.java to address.java. Now will it be compiled in that scenario? What my question is, I'll rename this .java file from hello world.java to address.java. In that case, will it be compiled or not? In that case, will it be compiled or not? Okay, now let's see. In this case, is it compiled or not? In this case, it will never be compiled just because, okay, there is an address class which is public, and the public class name is not the .java file name. So it is telling like the address class is public and it should be declared in the file name address.java. Now what I'll do is I'll rename the hello world.java to address.java. Now will that solve the problem and will it compile successfully? If I rename the .java file name, if I rename the .java file from hello world.java to address.java, will it resolve the problem and will it compile successfully? Yes or no? Definitely no. Just because we have another public class hello world. Then at the hello world it will give a compile time error. So if the name is hello world, then there is a problem with address. If the name is address, then the problem with hello world. So in order to avoid this conflict, the Java developers, okay, has implemented a rule that there should be only one public class at maximum in a .java file. It's a rule that there should be only one public class at maximum in a .java file. There should be only one public class at maximum in a .java file. There should be only one public class at maximum in a .java file. So, two public classes are not allowed in the same .java file. Okay? Either way we can tell. Now, just will it compile successful? Will it compile successful? Yes or no? Will it compile successful? If no, you should tell a reason why it is no. Two main methods in some of you are telling it will not compile. If it is compiled means you will be in a safe zone. You are not telling a reason. But if you are telling it is not compiled means you should tell a reason why it is not compiled. If you are telling it will not be compiled, just tell why it is not compiled. Just tell the reason, okay? If it is correct, I will appreciate you. If it's not correct, I will clarify you. But express yourself. In the same .java file,
there is no two main
two main methods are not allowed. Okay, that's what we are telling, right? Okay, let's make a little bit change to your assumption. Okay, your assumption is incorrect. Okay, we can have any number of classes in the Java file, and even all the classes can have main methods. Okay, we can have any number of classes in the .java file, and even all the classes can have main methods. There is no restriction like only one class should have main method, or only two classes should have main method, or only 10 classes should have main method. Okay, all the classes can have a main method. Okay, all the classes can have main method, or not even a single class may not have a main method. Just because for compilation, the main method is not the criteria. Okay, as we told in the first class, the compilation starts with the class, not the main method. Main method will never be a criteria for compilation. Okay, for compilation, the entity is the criteria, not the main method. For compilation, an entity is the criteria, not the main method. Okay. We can have main methods in each and every class, or not even a single class. There is no restriction for that. Even we can have all the classes without main methods. There is no restriction for that. Now, if I execute this application, first it will print hello world or address and hello world. But my question is, if I execute this application, first will it print hello world and then address, or first address then hello world? It will print only hello world. Is there any, one of the guys is telling that it will print only hello world. Is there any other answer? Just because it can be first in first out or last in first out. Error? Not executed. Okay, good. Any other answer? Now, while executing, are we executing the .java file as a whole, or are we executing a class as a unit? Got my question? Are we executing the .java file as a whole, or are we executing a class as a unit? Definitely we are executing a class as a unit. So, if I try to compile this, it will be compiled successful, and if I execute a class as a unit, so if I execute hello world, then hello world main method is executed. If I execute address, the address main method will be executed. So while compiling, the whole .java file will be compiled as a unit, but while executing, a specific class will be executed. Okay, it will not take the all the classes in the .java file. Only the specific class will be executed. Okay, so for compilation, the whole .java file will be considered a unit, but while executing, only that specific class will be considered a unit. Okay, so here, if we give Java space hello world, then hello world class main method will be executed. If we execute Java space person, then person class main method will be executed. If we execute Java space address, then address class main method will be executed. Okay? Understood how it will be? Is there any confusion? Is there any confusion for anybody? Okay? The execution will be class specific. It will not be generic to all the classes. Okay? The execution will be specific to a specific class. If you give Java space the class name, only that particular class will be executed. Not all the classes in the .java file. After compilation, the .java file will be used only for compilation. After compilation and the .class file is generated, okay, for execution the .class file will never be a unit. For execution, only the class will be a unit. Only the .class file will be a unit. Okay, for each and every class there is a different .class file. If for each and every class if there is a different class .class file, The execution of one class will never depend on another class, or the execution of one class will never conflict with another class. Okay? The execution of one class will never conflict with another class, just because while executing what we give Java space the class name. So there will not be any conflict between one class and another class of a .java file while executing. Okay, there will not be any conflict. Okay, between one class and another class of a .java file, just because the .java file will never be coming into the picture while executing. While executing, only the class will come into the picture. Only the class will be considered as a unit. Understood? Everybody? Only three? Only three understood? Everybody understood, right? This is how the basic thing will be. Okay? This is how the basic class will work in a .java file. Okay? Now, once we have the basic knowledge how the class will behave and what the class will do, okay? Let me switch to the members of a class. Okay? What are the different members that can be there in a class? Now let me remove the person and address all the classes. Now let me have only hello world. Now let me create a new .java file otherwise. Member demo. And let me have a main method. Okay. Now don't try to type the class names or any names in any while developing anything. Don't try to type the things. Just copy the class name. Then okay. Like that we can avoid typing errors. The class names and all we should copy. Otherwise while typing it may be a typing error. So now we have a class member demo. Okay. Now in that class we have a main method. This is a very simple class. Now what are the members of a class? Okay. What are the different members available in a class? Okay. Basically we have four different types of members in a class. Just if we consider a family as a unit, we can have 4 or 5 members in a family, like a father, mother, brother, and sister. Okay, a family is a class, and these four are different members. Okay, now there are of different types. 2 are parents and 2 are children. Okay, then first we discuss what are the different types of members in a class. We can have 4 different types of members in a class. Okay, we can have 4 different types of members in a class. Okay, what are the different types of members in a class? One is attributes, second one is methods, constructors, initialization blocks. These are the 4 different types of members available in a class. In a class, we can have 4 different types of members. One is attributes, methods, constructors, and initialization blocks. attributes, methods, constructors, and initialization blocks. Now, we'll discuss in depth how we can make use of that specific member. Okay, how we can make use of attributes, what are the different common errors that we may make while using attributes, and methods, constructors, and initialization blocks. Okay, this is the core, and this is the heart of Java. Okay, the members of a class will be like a heart of Java. Okay, just if we are comfortable with this, just we have achieved the first step. Okay, such important it is. So just have a presence of mind. Okay, and understand it carefully. And if you have any doubts anywhere here, okay, you can ask. Okay, just it will be such important. Now, first type of member is attributes. Okay, attributes are very similar to the global variables in C. Okay, let's consider like if we have a C application with a main function. Now, can I call it as a global variable? Can I call it as a global variable? Yes or no? Let's consider like I have another function. Now, is this I available for both main and test? Yes. So, this I is called as a global variable. Okay. We can correlate the global variables of C to the attributes of Java. Okay. The global variables in C will be available for all the functions in that source file. Okay. In the same way, the attributes in Java will be available to all the executable blocks of that class. The attributes in Java will be available to all the executable blocks of that class. Now, let me define an attribute, a very simple attribute, I. A very simple attribute, I. Just I am defining a very simple attribute, I, which is of type int. Just int is the data type, I is the name of the variable. Int is the data type, I is the name of the variable. It's an identifier. Hope all of you know what are data types and what are variables and all. Am I right? Now, let me print the value of I directly. See, in Java, in C, we need to give printf %d something. Okay, that stuff is not required. Directly we can print using the variable name. Okay, if the variable is there in the class, then it is called as an attribute. If the variable is there in the class, then it is called as an attribute. Or the class scope variables are called as attributes. 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 Whereas the variables that are present in the class are called as attributes. Any way we get it? Now, I have declared an attribute in the class member demo with a name I, and I am trying to print the value of I in the main method. Okay, and here if I try to compile it, it will give a compile time error. Let us see why it is a compile time error. Okay, the declaration of variable and the usage of variable is perfect. Okay, What's the .java file name? Member demo.java. Okay. The spelling is mistake. The spelling is println. Just it is a spelling mistake. PRINTLN. Now, what is this giving? Okay, non-static variable I cannot be referenced from a static context. Okay, this is the error it is giving. Non-static variable I cannot be referenced from a static context. Okay, but without discussing what is object and how the object works, it's not relevant to discuss what is static. But right now, make it a note like we can have in a class we can have both static members as well as non-static members. Right now, at this point of the time, make it a note like in a class we can have both static members as well as non-static members. In a class we can have both static members as well as non-static members. In a class we can have both static members and non-static members. Okay? Here, a non-static member. Okay? Let's consider next. I have a non-static member. I have a static member. Okay? The non-static member cannot be used in a static member directly. It is a rule. In Java, it is a rule that a non-static member cannot be used directly in a static member. Okay? Now, is I a non-static member or a static member? Non-static member. Okay? Is main a member of that class?
Yes.
Is main a member of the class? Yes or no?
Yes.
Main is a method. Main is a method. Method is a method member of a class? Yes. What are the different types of members available? Attributes, methods, constructors, initialization clause. Main is a method. So even main is also a member of the class. So is main a static member or a non-static member? Static member. Just because there is a static keyword before the main. Since there is a static keyword before the main is said to be a static member of the class member demo. Okay? Main is a static member. Now, is I a static member or a non-static member? If there is a static keyword, then it is a static member. If there is no static keyword, then it is a non-static member. Before I, do we have any static keyword? No. If there is a static keyword, we have static keyword for main method. Since we have static keyword for main method, then this main method is said to be a static member. Do we have static keyword before I? No. So I is said to be a non-static member. The rule in Java is a non-static member cannot be referred directly in a static member. Now, are we referring I in the main method? Yes. I is a non-static member which is referred directly in main, which is a static member. So it will be a compiler. Just make it note like a non-static member cannot be referred directly in a static member. If you want to do so, it will be a compiler. Okay? And let's consider like a non-static member is referred in a non-static member directly. Non-static member is referred in a non-static member directly. Then it will compile successfully. If a non-static member is referred in non-static member directly, then it will compile successfully. And if a static member is referred in a static member directly, then also it will compile successfully. If a static number is referred in another static number directly, then it will compile successful. And if a static number referred in a non-static number directly, non-static will compile successful. Okay? If a non-static number is referred in a static number, then only it will be compile time error. If a non-static number is referred in a non-static number, then also it will compile successful. If a static is referred in a static, then it will compile successfully. If a static is referred in non-static, then also it will compile successfully. But the compile time error will be there only in one scenario where a non-static number is referred directly in a static number. That's the only scenario which will be a compile time error. So, is this class following another first, second, or third, or fourth scenario? First scenario, just because the non-static number I is being directly used in a main, which is a method which is static. So it will be a compile time error. So it is a compile time error. Temporarily, to make it compile, I am making I as static. Temporarily, to make it compile, to make it compilable, I am making I as static. Okay. Once we discuss what is the object, where all this will be stored, where the non-static members are stored and where static members are stored. If we discuss the whole basics, then after we will get a clear picture. Right now, make it note like there can be any members, there can be attributes, there can be methods, there can be constructors, and there can be initialization blocks in a class, and a non-static member cannot be referred directly in a static member. Okay, remain these rules. Just while going on, we can understand how it will work. Now it will be compiled as well as it will be executed successfully. Now, what is the default value of an integer variable in C? Hmm? What is the default value of a integer variable in C? Garbage. That means it can be any value. Garbage means it's not unused. It can be any value. It can be any value assigned by the compiler. Okay, but in Java, the default value, okay, depends upon the data type. Okay, the default value of integer variable or the default value of a integer attribute is 0. The default value of integer attribute in Java is 0. Now, what it will print in the console? If I compile this application, it will be compiled successful. And if I execute the application, what is the content that is printed in the console? 0 is the content that is printed in the console. Just because the value of I, the default value of I is 0. Just because I is a integer attribute, and the default value of an integer attribute is 0 in Java. So, let's compile. Let me execute. What's the value it is printing? 0. Okay, the default value of integer attribute is 0. Okay, now if the same I, let me have multiple attributes like Just in Edit Plus, if you want to copy the same content and paste in the next line, just go for Control J. Just if we go for Control J, it will copy and paste in the next line also. Control J. Okay. Now I am printing the value of I and D. Now the value of I will be 0 and the value of D will be 0.0. The value of I is 0 and the value of D is 0.0. Okay, the default value of double is 0.0. Okay, basically in Java we have two different types of attributes. Okay, we have two different types or two different categories of attributes. One is a primitive attribute, and second one is a derived attribute. We have two different types of data types or two different types of attributes. The attributes categorization will be based on the data types. Okay, we have two different types of attributes. One is primitive, second one is derived, and we can tell whether it is a primitive or derived based on the data type. If the data type is primitive, then it is a primitive attribute. If the data type is derived, then it is a derived attribute. If the data type is primitive, then it is a primitive attribute. If the data type is derived, then the attribute is a derived attribute. Now, what are primitive attributes and what are derived attributes? That's a big question. Okay. Now, what is a primitive attribute means? The primitive attribute is an attribute that is inherited from the basic programming languages. Like for Java, we have data types like int, char, float, byte, short, long, double. All these data types will be inherited from C. Okay. So these are not base data types in Java. These are inherited from C. So those data types are called as primitive data types. The data types that are being inherited from the basic programming languages are primitive data types. The data types that are inherited from the basic programming languages are primitive data types. The primitive data types are inherited from the basic programming language like basic COBOL, C and all. Okay. Now in primitive also we have different categories like numeric data types, character data types, Boolean data types. In primitive we have three categories: numeric data types, character data types and Boolean data types. Numeric means the data types that represents numbers. Okay. As a ascending order, the numeric data types are byte, short, int, double. This is the ascending order of the numeric data types. Byte, short, int long float double. This is the ascending order of a numeric data type. Up to int, the default value will be 0. Sorry, up to long, the default value will be 0. For float and double, the default value will be 0.0. Okay? Up to long, the default value will be 0. For float and double, the default value will be 0.0. And another character data types, we have a data type char. Char is used to represent a single character. Like we know about char, like within a single quotes, just we give a single character, then it is a char. Okay? And we have a boolean data type, which is boolean. Data type is boolean. Char is used to hold a single character in single quotes. Just how we can hold it means just within single quotes like this. Within single quotes we can hold a very single character. In order to represent some values like this, we use char data type. And the default value of char is empty. Default value of char is empty. And boolean. Now, in C, how we represent the true and false conditions? See, let's consider like, okay, in a if block, if something is true, then I'll go for if, otherwise I'll go for else. Now, how I can represent that if and else condition? How I can represent either true or false here? Let's consider like, I have integer. Now, will it go to if or else? If. Okay. In C, okay, all non-zero content will be considered as true, and the 0 will be considered as false. 0 is considered as false, and non-zero will be considered as true in C. But in Java, to represent some true or false values, we have a specific, see, we are, in C what we do, in order to represent true or false, we use integer. But in Java, in order to represent true or false, we have a specific data type, that is boolean. Okay? In Java, to represent true or false values, we have a specific data type, that is boolean. The boolean can have only two possible values. Here you need true. These are the only two possible values for boolean data type. In order to represent true or false conditions, we have a boolean data type, and the boolean data type can have only two possible values that are true or false. We can have either true or false, that's it. We cannot have any other values other than true or false for a boolean data type. And the default value for a boolean data type is false. The default value for a boolean data type is false. Or the default value for a boolean attribute is false. And this is the primitive attribute. This is the list of primitive attributes that we have. Okay, understood everybody how the primitive attributes will work? And the next is derived attributes. Okay, any class in Java can act as a derived attribute. Any class in Java can act as a derived attribute. Whether the class is a library defined class or a user defined class, irrespective. Whether the class
is a library defined class or a user defined class. We are telling class just because we know only classes. But in real, any entity can act as a data type. Even a class or interface or enum, any entity can act as a derived data type. Just modify the definition. Any entity in Java can act as a derived data type. Any entity in Java can act as a derived data type. The entity can be either library defined or user defined. The entity can be either library defined or user defined. Let's consider that now is string a entity? Is string a entity? Yes or no? Yes, it is a library defined entity. System is also entity. We can define any number of classes. Let's consider like member demo is a class which is also an entity. Whether the entity is defined by the user or the entity is defined in the library, any entity in Java can act as a derived data type, and the default value of derived data type is null. The default value of derived data type is null. It's irrespective. Whatever the derived data type it might be, whatever the entity it might be, for any entity or for any derived data type, the default value is null. Default value for any entity is null. Okay? Oh? Now, let me go back to the application. Now, the values printed here are I and 0 and 0.0. Okay, just I can give like this B. Okay, so what is the value of B? False. Okay, and how I can initialize the value means I can initialize the false like this. Now, okay, assigning some value to a attribute or assigning some value to a variable at the place of declaration is called as initialization. Assigning a value to a variable at the place of declaration is called as initialization. It's there already in C, right? Declaration means declaring an identifier with a data type. Declaring an identifier with a data type is a declaration. At the place of declaration, if we assign some value to that variable, then it is called as initialization. Now, will this Boolean attribute B have any default value? Will this Boolean attribute B have any default value? No. Okay. the default value will be assigned only when the variable is not initialized. The default value will be assigned only if the variable or attribute is not initialized. If the attribute is initialized, then it will not get any default value. If the attribute is initialized, then it will not get any default value. The default value will be assigned to an attribute if it is not initialized. If the attribute is initialized, then it will not get any default value. If the attribute is not initialized, then only it will get default values. Now what is the value printed for B? False. Now even I can make it true. No double quotes, no single quotes, directly true or false. And even this true or false also keywords. Okay? Values are 0, 0.0 and true. Okay? Now I can reassign the value. Let me, rather than checking B, I make it a boolean variable is valid. Let me make it the default value. And let me change the value. Now at this point of time, will it print false or true? The default value or the value that is assigned in the main method? Will it print the default value or the value that is assigned in the main method? True or false? True or false? True. Okay? In general, in the interviews, the answer might not be in the options. Okay? Whatever the way that he asks, you need to analyze the application and you need to analyze the application with your knowledge, not based on the options that the interviewer asks. The answer might not be in the options that the interviewer is asking. So, if the interviewer asks whether it is true or false, 80% of people will tell either true or false. Even they are not sure of that. Even they got doubt it is a compile time error, they will tell either true or false, just because the interviewer has asked two options, true or false. But the answer might be or might not be there in the options provided by the interviewer. Just you should follow your way. Whether it is correct, you should follow your subject, you should follow your knowledge, and based on your knowledge, you need to analyze the program and you need to tell the answer. This will be definitely a compile time error. What is the reason? Non-static attribute is valid, is directly used in static method main. So it is a compile time error. Okay? It's a compile time error just because non-static attribute is valid, is directly used in a static method main. So it is a compile time error. Main method is static, but the boolean attribute is valid is non-static, and we are using is valid directly in main. It's a compile time error. Are you confused or got the clarity? Okay, so non-static attribute cannot be used directly in a static method. So that's what I am telling. While reading or while observing any knowledge, okay, we should not only concentrate upon the current things. Even we should revise the previous things also. See, at least 25% of this class are told it is true, but they could not able to get or they could not able to remember the concept that we told just 15 minutes back. How we can remember the classes that we discussed 1 week or 2 weeks back? That's what I'm telling. Continuously you revise the things. Then only you can be a better programmer. Then only you can perform better in interviews. At the end of the day, at the end of 4 months, there will be lots of concepts in the notes. But if nothing is there in your mind, you cannot get in the interview. So, listening to the classes is one part and revising is another part, another important part. You should revise the things very regularly. Okay? And a derived attribute, let's consider like this string. The value of a derived attribute is the default value of a derived attribute is null. Default value of a derived attribute is null. The default value of a derived attribute is null. Okay, so what is the value of str? Null. Just let me the value is null. The value of is valid is false, just because it is a boolean. And the naming convention of attribute is the attribute should start with lowercase. The characters will be the same. Only alphanumerics underscore dollar will be allowed. It's the same throughout Java. But for variables or for attributes or variables, okay, the naming convention is it should start with lowercase. The name of variables should start with lowercase. Okay, and if there are multiple words, from the second word onwards it should be uppercase. If there are multiple words in the name of a variable. If there are multiple words in the name of a variable, from the second word onwards it should be in uppercase. The first word or the variable name should start with lowercase. From the second word onwards it should be in uppercase. Let's consider like there is a variable name. Okay, this is a variable name. Is operator permitted to login? See, this is the first character, and the first character should be of lowercase, and from the second word onwards, the starting character should be in uppercase. In operator, O is uppercase. In permitted, P is uppercase. In to T is uppercase. In login, L is uppercase. So, from the second word onwards, it should be in uppercase. This is the naming convention of attribute or any variable. Even for methods also it is the naming convention. Okay? Even for methods also is the same convention. The method name also should start with lowercase, and if there are multiple words in the method name, the same. From the second word onwards it should be in uppercase. You should start with uppercase. It's how it will be. And to a string, this string is used to represent multi-charactered content. Okay, string is used to represent multi-charactered content. Now, how we can represent multi-charactered content in C? How we can represent multi-charactered content? Let's consider like I have a name. Now, how I can represent this multi-character content in C? By using character array. Character array is used in C to represent multi-character content. But in Java, we have a specific data type for that. It is string. String is a data type which is used to represent multi-character content. Now, is string a primitive data type or a derived data type? Definitely string is a derived data type just because string is a class. Most of the people will think like string is a primitive, but string is not primitive. String is a class in the library, so string is a derived data type. So just I can directly use HCU. Okay, just one thing to remind you. Okay, in Java, uppercase and lowercase are considered to be different. Java is a case sensitive programming language. Uppercase and lowercase are completely different. Okay, just if you want to keep comments, I'll give in 2/. It's the same in C. Okay, just the HCU is different and HCU is different. Uppercase and lowercase are considered to be different in Java. How about in HTML? You know HTML? HTML is not case sensitive, it is case insensitive. Okay, now let me remove multiple attributes. Let me go for what are the values printed? 0, 0.0 or 0, 3.14. 0, 0.0 or 0, 3.14. 0? Anybody 0.0? It will not assign a default value just because already we are assigning a value. What is giving? It will not able to assign 3.14 to float. Just because, okay, by default, a fraction numeric in Java is considered to be a double. By default, a fractional numeric in Java is considered to be a double. By default, a fraction numeric in Java is considered to be a double. What is a fraction numeric? A number which have some fractional values, dot something. A fraction numeric is considered to be a double. Now 3.4 will be considered a double. Now we see the hierarchy of data types. A float is big or double is big? Float is big or double is big? Definitely double is big. So can I assign a bigger value to a lower data type? Can I assign a higher value to a lower data type? No. Okay? It's not possible. So it is a compile time error. Now can I assign like this? Yes. It's not possible even in C. Okay? Is it possible? No. Just because 3.14 is considered to be double and I am assigning to int. It will be a compile time error. Just because a bigger value cannot be assigned to a lower data type. Now, can I assign like this? Yes or no? Yes. By default, a fraction numeric will be considered a double and a non-fraction numeric will be considered int. Okay, so int can be assigned to float. It's not a error. Int can be assigned to float. But the problem comes when we try to assign a fraction numeric to a float, okay, which is not allowed. Just because by default Java will consider a fraction numeric as double, and the compiler will think like on the right hand side it is double, on the left hand side it is float, and float is lesser than double. So it is a compile time error. To avoid this conflict, okay, just we have to append f. If to represent it is a float, we should append f at the end. So it is considered as a float. Okay, if we append f at the end, it is considered as a float. Now it is allowed just because 3.14 f represents that it is a float. Now, if I compile and execute the application, give 0 and 0.1. Okay? Now, the variables that are declared inside the executable blocks. The variables that are declared inside the executable blocks are called as local variables. The variables that are declared inside the executable blocks are called as local variables. The variables that are declared inside the executable blocks are called as local variables. The variables that are declared inside the entity are called as attributes. The variables that are declared inside the entity are called as attributes. If that variable is declared inside the executable block, then it is called as a local variable. We have three executable blocks: methods, constructors, initialization blocks. These three are executable blocks in Java. Okay? Methods, constructors, initialization blocks are executable blocks in Java. So now I can call this method as an executable block. Now is main a executable block?
Yes.
Is main a executable block? Yes. Now the attribute I, which is defined in the member demo class, is said to be a this the variable that I declared in this class is said to be an attribute, and this is said to be a local variable. Okay. Now let me define the local variable as k. Temporarily, let me define it as k. Now what's the value of what are the values printed? Zero. While printing, it will not print 3.14f. Just it will print 3.14 only. Okay. And the value. What is the value printed? 20. Okay. Now let me place this 20 here.
Now, what are the values printed? Just see the order. I, F, K. What is the value of I? What is the value of F? What is the value of K? Twenty? 3.14? 0. A very important thing is only attributes will have default values. Local variables will never have a default value. Only attributes will have default values. Local variables will never have a default value. Local variables will never have a default value. And in Java, if you are using a variable at any point of time, if you are using a variable, okay, there should be some value in that variable to compile. Let's consider like I am using I. If I am using I, there should be some value in I if we want to compile that. Okay? If I am using I at some place and if I want to compile that, there should be some value in I. Let's consider like I have a variable I. Now, is there any value in I? What's the value of I? 20. So, where I am using I? In which line I am using I? In which line I am using I? 8th line. In 8th line I am using I. At that particular point of time, do I have any value in I? Yes, it's 20. So it will be compiled. Okay. Now F. Do we have any value for F at the 9th line? Yes, it will be compiled. But K. Do we have any value in K while using that K? Where we are using K at the 10th line. Okay. Is it having any value? No. For any variable, at the point of using that variable, there should be some value in that variable. Okay? The variable might be an attribute or the variable might be a local variable. The variable is called as an attribute when it is there in the entity. The variable is said to be a local variable if it is there in the executable block. Okay? So, whatever the variable it might be, either it is an attribute or a local variable, if we are using a variable, at the point of usage, there should be some value in that variable. Otherwise, it will give a compile time error. At the point of usage of the variable, there should be some value in that variable. Otherwise, it will give a compile time error. Now, I am using I, F and K. I at the 8th line, F at the 9th line and K at the 10th line. Now, at the time of using I at the 8th line, is there any value in I? Yes or no? Yes. Even I have not assigned any value, there is a default value assigned. Okay? There is a default value assigned by the compiler. The compiler itself assigns the default value to any attribute. So, the compiler has assigned the default value 0 to I. So, I has some value when it is used. But, in the previous scenario, is K having some value when it is used? No, just because for local variables the compiler will never take the responsibility of assigning default values. Default values will not be there for local variables, default values will be there only for attributes. Now, if I tell a rule like local variables should be assigned before its usage, is it true? If I tell that local variables should be assigned before its usage, is it true? Yes. Definitely. Local variables should be assigned before used. Local variables should be assigned with some value before used. Local variables should be assigned with some value before used.
Okay. If there is no value in local variable when it is used, then it will be a compile time error. Now, will it give a compile time error? Will it give a compile time error? No, just because I am using k at the 11th line, but in the 10th line itself, there is a value assigned. Okay? That's how it will be. Now, what is the value of k and what is the value of j? Will it print 2020 or no? Where I am using, in which line I am using k? Is it at the 10th line or is it at the 8th line? Using means not only printing. Most of the people think using is printing only. Using means wherever we use the value of the variable. Using means not only printing, using means wherever we use that value of that variable, then it is using. Then we are trying, what the 8th line will do means, the 8th line will try to assign the value of k to j. But now we are trying to use the value of k, but there is no value in k. So at the 8th line itself it will get compile time error. Just because using means whenever we are trying to access the value of that variable. Most of the people think using is only printing. It's not the case. Using means when we are trying to access the value of that variable. So where we are trying to access the value of the variable, in the 8th line itself, we are trying to assign the value of k to j, but there is no value in k. So at the 8th line itself, it will give a compile time error. Understood? Using means when we are trying to access the value of that variable, not the printing. Okay? So in the 8th line, we are trying to access the value of k and we are trying to assign the value to j, but there is no value in k. So whenever a local variable is used, at that time there should be some value in that local variable. Otherwise, it will be a compile time error. See, it's telling like variable k might not have been initialized. Okay? If we try to use some variable without a value, this error will come. Okay? So these are some of the things, and we'll discuss the remaining things. Okay? In the tomorrow's session. Okay? Any doubts from the current session? No? If you have doubts, even you can ask personally, and I would greatly appreciate if you ask the doubts in the class itself, just because even some of the other guys have the same doubt, okay, so that I need not to repeat the same thing. So I appreciate asking the doubts in the class itself, but not in the middle of the class, okay, after completing a concept.